What if one day, you were offered the easiest job in the world? High pay, no boss breathing down your neck, no annoying colleagues to deal with. Every day, all you have to do is take a few laps around the perimeter and sit back to enjoy the view. Sounds like a dream job, right? But there's a catch. You have to live completely alone for an entire year on the edge of a canyon that's been wiped off every map. No contact with the outside world. No speaking to the person stationed at the observation tower across the way. And most importantly, you must, under no circumstances, let anything from the bottom of the canyon climb up to the surface. Because according to the guards who came before you, whatever is locked down there isn't an animal. And it isn't human. It's the very thing that caused over 2,400 soldiers to vanish without a trace. Today, we're going to see how an elite former sniper is thrown into the most terrifying place on the planet. And how he survives once he realizes the most dangerous monsters in the canyon might not be the things crawling in the depths, but the people who created them in the first place. This is how to beat the movie. The Canyon. The story begins with our protagonist, Levi, jolting awake from a nightmare. He was once a notorious Marine Corps sniper, but since his discharge, he's been haunted by a deep, hollow melancholy, a classic case of PTSD. The targets he handled in the past have left a permanent dark shadow on his soul. At dawn, he goes to the sea to watch the tides, his small notebook being the only thing that offers any relief. Levi tries to use poetry to soothe his restlessness, but the loneliness clings to him. Suddenly, a small terrier runs up to him, instantly brightening his mood. Sometimes, the meaning of life is found in a dog. At least their joy is something you can share. Then, his phone buzzes. It's a message from an unknown number. Following the provided address, Levi takes a specialized vehicle to a military base, the very heart of the U.S. Marine Corps where he once served. Despite having been out for 4 years, the way he's greeted with military honors shows just how high level his reputation still is. Take a seat. The woman across from him clearly outranks a naval colonel. She wants to hire Levi for a special, top secret mission lasting exactly 1 year. The familiar environment and the high-stakes conversation seem to help Levi regain his former edge. 1 month later, Levi wakes up on a bumpy, turbulent flight. He's lost track of time, but his intuition tells him this definitely isn't the US anymore. A soldier approaches him, announcing that they are about to enter a no-fly zone. Levi is ordered to hike another 38 kilometers north and report for duty by 4 p.m. tomorrow. Despite his head being full of questions, when the rear hatch of the aircraft opens, Levi grabs his gear and casually walks to the exit. With one smooth jump, the main chapter of The Canyon truly begins. After hitting the ground, Levi stays on high alert. He treks through mountains and streams, marching north until, following his map, he finally arrives at the canyon. The view is vast, veiled in a mysterious, hazy mist. A sense of unease grips his mind. He is met by a black man who enthusiastically introduces himself as a member of the British Royal Marines. Having been stationed here for a full year, like Levi, he has no idea which nation's territory they are actually in. From his stories, it becomes clear that this secret mission is effectively just a lonely guarding job. Levi is here to take over his post, as tomorrow is his final day of service. As they talk, they walk toward their quarters. A 15-meter-tall guard post known as the West Observation Tower looms before them. For the next year, Levi will be completely on his own. His job is simple: maintain the equipment on the west side, with the ultimate goal of ensuring the canyon remains secure. When he spots an identical tower on the opposite side, Levi immediately asks about it. His predecessor explains that it's the East Observation Tower, manned by another guard. According to the rules, the guards on opposite sides are strictly forbidden from making any contact. Besides, crossing over is impossible, as the canyon floor is teeming with lethal obstacles. They do their job, you do yours. I saw some movement over there early this morning. Probably just their scheduled shift change. Inside the tower, the guard explains there are 3 core daily tasks. First, every 600 meters along the canyon, there are automated turrets and high-sensitivity tripwire mines. Their purpose is to stop whatever is down there from climbing up. Levi must reload and maintain them daily. Second, inspect the 10 satellite transmitters lining the cliff edge. These exist to prevent surveillance satellites from detecting the canyon, so maintenance is critical. The presence of these transmitters is also why the entire canyon is in a total communication blackout. Finally, every 30 days, he must report the status to headquarters via radio. However, if the transmission system fails or if something from the abyss breaches the surface, he must hit the emergency button. This triggers the tower's siren and activates a protocol called Wild Dog. The predecessor doesn't know what it is, but he was strictly warned, if you hear that siren, the only thing to do is run for your life. Well, the most concise theory I've heard is that this canyon is a doorway to hell. And we're just the gatekeepers. The next morning, the guard packs his bags. His year of service is officially over. After hiking 38 kilometers through the forest, he reaches the extraction point. But just as he grabs the helicopter's rope ladder, a shocking ending unfolds. The crew confirms his identity, then coldly guns him down. Clearly, the powers that be don't allow anyone to bring information about the canyon back to the world. In the days that follow, Levi, completely oblivious, starts his routine. He is self-sufficient, and his life settles into a quiet rhythm. Despite the solitude, the weight of his mission keeps his restlessness at bay. A disciplined man like Levi finds peace in the repetition. He diligently inspects the satellite transmitters daily, occasionally peering down. The dense web of mines is enough to make anyone's skin crawl. Luckily, all systems are operational, and he hasn't seen a single hollow yet. When the 30-day radio check comes around, Levi answers his superior's questions honestly. It's a surprisingly easy gig. In his downtime, he searches for books to kill time and accidentally discovers something behind a bookshelf. Curiously, he clears it away. The walls are covered in messages from his predecessors, dating back to the first guard in 1947, Captain Bradford Shaw. Only those willing to accept the risk can go further. Something about the message inspires Levi. He begins to pay attention to the other side. Through his binoculars, he realizes the guard across the way is a woman. As if sensing she's being watched, she turns and looks straight at him. A few days later, during a thunderstorm, the tower feels strangely gloomy. A lightning strike jolts Levi awake. He instinctively grabs his rifle, realizing his nerves are frayed. When things calm down, he glances across again. She is staring right at him. Levi's heart begins to race. For a man who has never known love, it's a strange, foreign feeling. Finally, on a clear, moonlit night, she fires a shot into the air, clearly trying to initiate contact. Levi checks her through his binoculars and sees her holding up a sign. "What's your name?" Remembering the warning, Levi coldly replies, "No contact." She sighs in frustration. The guy across the way is a total square. She immediately writes another message, a short, slightly threatening, yet cute remark. Her playfulness stirs something in Levi. He pours a drink and writes back. And just like that, Levi strikes up an acquaintance with Anya. This encounter opens the door to a surreal journey filled with variables. "Cheers, you're going to make me fall off my chair." She fires a shot that catches Levi off guard. Apparently, Anya is an elite sniper. 2. The competitive instinct in Levi flares up. Provoked, he fires back, shattering a wine bottle on her side. He expects to see her horrified. But Anya is thrilled. She picks up the bottle to tease him further. The stoic Levi can't help but laugh. But then, things turn bizarre. Anya's expression hardens. She gestures for Levi to look down into the canyon. Under the spotlight, the truth is revealed. In the darkness, several black silhouettes are frantically climbing toward the surface. Sensing the impending doom, Levi chambers around. The life or death battle officially begins. These monsters look like a grotesque fusion of man and vegetation. They were indeed the hollows from the canyon floor. Levi immediately realized what he was dealing with and began firing wildly to survive. One of the monsters, struck by a bullet, accidentally triggered the tripwire mines. Shrapnel flew everywhere, some of it hitting Anya. Fortunately, the automated turrets on both sides activated, providing them with a much-needed breathing space. Under the relentless crossfire, the horrific battle finally subsided. By dawn, there wasn't a monster in sight, and the canyon returned to its haunting silence. After that fateful night, Anya tended to her own wounds. Seeing Levi anxiously watching from across the way, she struggled to pick up her notebook and scribbled a message. Once he had settled everything, Levi descended into the depths to weld the damaged obstacles and replace the spent mines. These devices were incredibly sensitive. One wrong move would mean certain death. Yet, just as Levi finished, a drone suddenly flew up from the canyon floor. Anya had her rifle aimed at it, but she didn't fire. A second later, the drone vanished just as mysteriously as it had appeared. 3 months later, while Levi was recording his routine report, he noticed the spare light bulbs. Realizing it was Christmas Day, a brilliant idea struck him. When Anya stepped out of the east tower, she saw a glittering, illuminated Christmas tree at the base of Levi's tower. Even a stoic guy like Levi finally knew how to be romantic. Anya was so overjoyed she could have jumped for joy. Their communication frequency increased, and the two young guards grew closer. A subtle, ambiguous tension blossoming between them. Every day, outside of their duties, Levi silently watched Anya's every move. They engaged in every interactive game they could devise, playing with such intensity they lost track of time. Watching them, no one would have expected two people strictly forbidden from contact to be flirting so passionately. Time flew by, winter faded into spring, and soon it was Valentine's Day. While on patrol, Levi noticed Anya's absence and wondered why she hadn't come out. That evening, looking through his binoculars, he saw Anya curled up in the corner of her tower, sobbing uncontrollably. Levi frantically asked what was wrong, and Anya gave a heartbreakingly helpless answer. She was incredibly lonely and desperately wished Levi could be right there beside her. Even though the towers were only 400 meters apart, it was an impassable, bottomless abyss between them. That night, Levi couldn't sleep. He stood by the bookshelf, rereading Captain Bradford Shaw's message. Only those willing to accept the risk can go further. Suddenly, a bold idea sparked in his mind. He headed to the basement and retrieved a rocket. He dismantled the explosive warhead, keeping only the propulsion unit. As a weapons expert, Levi knew he could use the rocket's thrust to launch a cable across the gap. Across the way, Anya watched in shock and admiration.
What are you doing?
It streaked across the canyon, dragging the cable behind it. Levi's plan was a perfect success. Anya rushed down the tower, extinguished the small fire caused by the landing, and secured the cable tightly. When she returned to her post, she saw Levi's message. "Dinner together tonight?" Anya's heart raced. She never expected the dry, old man to be this thoughtful. Levi even picked some wild flowers, pinning them to his vest as he prepared for their first date. He launched himself across the cable, sliding gracefully until the slack ended. The second half of the distance required him to climb hand over hand. But thanks to Levi's elite physical conditioning, he made it, and just like that, after 6 months of long-distance dating, the two were finally meeting face to face. "Good evening, Jossa. Even though I'm not supposed to be here, I made rabbit meat pie. Do you like rabbit pie? I'd be very happy to." As sunset painted the horizon, Levi and Anya shared a meal in the fading light. Perhaps because they were both snipers, they found they had plenty in common. Through their conversation, Anya revealed she was a Lithuanian Special Forces operative. Her past was every bit as brutal as Levi's. When discussing their longest shots, Levi mentioned a confirmed kill at 3.200 meters. Anya was visibly awestruck. That feat placed Levi among the top 5 snipers in the world. As night fell, the air grew thick with intimacy. They danced in the small room, and one thing led to another. After their passionate encounter, they sat together, talking through the long night. Levi even improvised a poem for her. Clearly, the man had become quite adept at sweeping a woman off her feet. Early the next morning, Levi bid Anya farewell to return to his tower. But just as they shared a final kiss, disaster struck. A group of hollows accidentally triggered the tripwires, and in the chaos, shrapnel severed the cable. Levi plummeted into the foggy, smoke-filled abyss. Seeing him fall, Anya didn't hesitate. She grabbed her parachute and gear, and without a second thought, dove in after him. The thick fog obscured everything, leaving her blind to what lay below. Suddenly, she hit a raging stream, and before she could react, she was swept away, reacting with lightning-fast instincts. She cut her parachute cord and used the force of the water to latch onto a log. Meanwhile, Levi was incredibly lucky. He caught onto a tree branch, dangling midair, but directly above him, a giant centipede lay in wait. As he hit the ground and tried to stand, Levi realized he had fallen into a bizarre patch of quicksand. More unsettlingly, whatever was surrounding him looked like a swamp monster. A cage of razor-sharp tentacles slowly tightened around him, clearly intending to devour its helpless prey. Just in the nick of time, Anya appeared. She calmly blasted the tentacles apart one by one. The creature seemed to feel pain. It released Levi and sank deep into the earth. Once they regained their composure, they began to explore the canyon floor. They knew they had to find the severed cable to have any hope of climbing out. But they hadn't gone far before the sound of hooves echoed through the mist. In a blink, several horse-riding hollows charged out. Their limbs were a terrifying mix of vines and lethal weapons, and Levi struggled to hold them back. though separated and seemingly at a disadvantage. Anya's independent combat skills were spectacular. With a few precise moves, she broke free from her captors. Levi realized these things likely viewed them as food, and they were far more dangerous than they looked. Anya soon realized her electronic climbing hook was gone, likely lost when she fell into the stream. With the canyon walls hundreds of meters high, climbing out by hand was impossible. Levi scanned their surroundings, desperate for an escape route. He suddenly noticed that the remains scattered around them were wearing vintage military uniforms from the last century. Based on the insignias, they were from the U.S. 1st Airborne Division. Recalling what his predecessor had said, he realized these were the soldiers from 1940. They had been trapped in this hellhole for over 70 years. With no time to dwell on the horror, they pushed forward. More human-like plant monsters emerged, their grotesque forms chilling to the bone. Even more terrifying, they discovered ancient architectural ruins deep in the abyss. It was clear that people had once lived here. Looking at the massive fissures in the earth, Anya theorized that a catastrophic earthquake must have occurred here, or perhaps that very disaster was what mutated these creatures into their current state. The two ducked into a nearby church for cover. The interior was filled with the long decomposed remains of people who had apparently passed away in peace, with no signs of struggle. Sinai, Levi whispered, they chose this way themselves. If they had all chosen to end their lives in the church, it was either to escape the monsters or to bury a horrifying secret. Just then, a rustling noise erupted from above, and a giant spider plummeted down. In the blink of an eye, the room was swarming with them. The two had no choice but to lay down heavy fire while carefully retreating toward the exit. But just as Levi reached for the door, several hollows burst in. The church turned into a chaotic battlefield. The number of spiders grew overwhelming, making it impossible to hold the line. In a desperate move, Anya fired a grenade, blasting a massive hole through the church wall. They scrambled out, but in the open canyon, finding a safe hiding spot was nearly impossible. Damn it, they're everywhere, Levi shouted. We're sitting ducks out here. Look, over there, on the cliffside. They didn't know what lay behind the rusted steel door on the cliff wall. But it was better than being exposed outside. After scouting the perimeter, they slipped inside. The space was dark, dank, and rusted to the core. Based on the layout, it looked like a military research facility. Levi quickly found a videotape labeled, "May God Forgive Us." Nearby, Anya discovered a propane-powered generator, due to the gas' long-term stability. It roared to life the moment she flipped the switch. Levi loaded the tape. He knew that in the 1940s, top-secret intel was often stored on these very reels. The video finally unveiled the canyon's dark truth. It turned out that around the same time Oppenheimer was developing the atomic bomb, the world powers were conducting secret biological warfare experiments right here. Then, on a fateful day in 1947, an 8.1 magnitude earthquake struck the canyon. The disaster ruptured the containment of dangerous biological samples, causing a catastrophic gene splice. Within days, the DNA of humans, animals, and plants had fused, turning the canyon into a literal hell on Earth. Seeing the truth, Levi wasn't surprised. He had vaguely guessed the cause. The situation here was a massive genetic mutation, and it was undeniably the work of human hands. Digging deeper into a computer console nearby, Levi noticed the hardware was surprisingly modern. Once he cracked the files, the final truth about their guard duty surfaced. The organization that hired them wasn't the military, but a genetic tech conglomerate called Black Fox. The documents suggested that those drones weren't just monitoring the area. They were collecting mutated genetic samples to engineer biochemical super soldiers. In short, Levi and Anya weren't protecting the world from the canyon. They were safeguarding Black Fox's inhumane experiments. Further research revealed the truth about the Wild Dog Protocol. It was a self-destruct sequence for the canyon. If the area was ever compromised by the outside world, a tactical nuclear device would automatically detonate, vaporizing every living thing within a 4-kilometer radius. They stepped back outside, but the moment they reached the threshold, they noticed something wrong. The bag of ammunition they had left by the door was gone. Realizing the monsters outside possessed a terrifying level of intelligence, they cautiously peered out. Sure enough, the bag was lying just outside, used as bait. Levi tossed a smoke grenade, and he and Anya slowly edged forward to retrieve the bag. "Watch your step," he whispered. Time seemed to lose all meaning. Levi followed the tracks to scout the area and quickly stumbled upon a structure resembling a deep, vertical shaft. At the same moment, Anya was caught dangling in midair, with a massive hollow standing directly beneath her. She fought the monster with everything she had, but it seemed immune to every physical blow. It even drew a katana and lunged at her. This hollow possessed terrifying intelligence. Its every strike wasn't just professional, it was lethal. With her stamina failing, Anya began to falter. Thankfully, Levi appeared in the nick of time, putting the creature down with a few well-placed shots. After calming Anya down, Levi crouched to inspect the body. To his disbelief, the corpse was Captain Shaw, the very first guard of the West Tower. It turned out that Shaw had been the one to coin the term, hollows. There was no time to process the horror. Levi snatched the captain's katana. They had to leave immediately, their ammunition was nearly gone. Retracing their steps, they were confronted by a mound of mutated horrors. Their DNA had intertwined into a monstrous, grotesque forest of flesh and bone. To reach the surface, they had to cross this nightmare. Levi and Anya moved with excruciating caution, terrified of waking the slumbering remains. But fate had other plans. Anya accidentally stepped on a patch of slick, viscous slime and lost her balance. In a heartbeat, the forest erupted into life. The creatures lunged with claws and fangs. Levi swung the katana, carving a path in the cramped quarters. The blade proved far more effective than their empty guns. Anya hurled a grenade, incinerating the cluster of monsters. They burned with savage intensity, accompanied by sharp cracks and agonized wailing that echoed throughout the deep pit. Looking down from above, they realized this was the nuclear silo for the Wild Dog protocol. As they climbed back to the surface, they found a row of makeshift shacks marked maintenance. Levi's face lit up. Inside sat a rugged, vintage Jeep. It functioned like an electronic climbing winch, with the immense pulling power of its winch. They could finally scale the canyon walls. After a few quick adjustments, they drove away from the silo. With the vehicle, the full scope of the canyon became clear. From the toxic vegetation to the hidden ruins, everything was laid bare. Beyond the hideous mutants, the greatest threat remained that ticking nuclear bomb. Before long, they located the cables they had lost earlier. Levi quickly lashed them to the Jeep's winch. Under the engine's strain, the vehicle began a slow, grinding crawl up the sheer cliff face. Just as escape seemed certain, chaos erupted below. The monsters swarmed in record numbers, their combined weight pushing the cable to the breaking point. Following Anya's signal, Levi smashed the fuel tank, flooding the area below with highly flammable propane. He then dropped an incendiary bomb, deciding to play a high stakes, all in, hand to clear their path. Anya hauled Levi onto the roof of the Jeep, then decisively cut the cable, abandoning the vehicle. Looking down into the hundreds of meters deep abyss, they began the final, hand-over-hand climb. Thanks to their superhuman endurance, they scrambled up to the safety of the guard tower. Safe at last, they began to weigh their future. Looking down at Captain Shaw's remains in the depths, they knew Black Fox wouldn't let anyone who left these towers alive. Anya urged Levi to hide away in a secret refuge in France and live out their lives in seclusion. But Levi felt differently. If they just walked away, the next guards would be slaughtered. Moreover, if the monsters ever escaped, it would be an apocalyptic disaster for humanity. After careful deliberation, Levi and Anya devised a daring plan. Anya used their old method, firing a new cable across the chasm to create an escape route. After a final, lingering goodbye, Levi kissed Anya and set his plan into motion. Back in his tower, he placed a call to his handler, the very woman who had recruited him. Levi didn't bother with pretenses, he knew the game was up. He laid his cards on the table, calling out her organization's true identity. The woman remained unnervingly calm, insisting that everything they had done was for the sake of national security. Though her voice was soft, both knew it had come down to a fight for survival. The moment she hung up, she checked the surveillance feeds, which had recorded every word of the couple's conversation. She coldly issued a command to her strike across the canyon. Levi and Anya began setting their traps, preparing everything before the enemy arrived. The roar of engines soon shattered the silence. Black Fox helicopters filled the sky. As they touched down, the ruthless handler stepped out, radiating pure malice. She arrived expecting to silence them forever, only to find the towers empty. Realizing Levi had fled, she immediately ordered her men to activate the combat drones. Levi and Anya didn't waste a second, sprinting to clear the 4-kilometer blast radius. Their plan was to trigger the nuclear device and wipe out the mutated horrors in the laboratory once and for all. The combat drones locked onto their thermal signatures, forcing the pair to fight as they ran. But for two of the world's elite snipers, the drones were child's play. A few precise shots were all it took to dismantle the mechanical hunters. As their GPS trackers ticked closer to the 4-kilometer safety mark, they finally caught their breath. Standing on opposite cliffsides, they leveled their rifles at the enemy's satellite transmitters. The woman in the tower remained oblivious. Unaware that death was closing in, she walked into the command center and saw Levi's final message scrawled on the wall. There are 3 things that cannot be hidden: the sun, the moon, and the truth. Boom, boom. 2 shots rang out simultaneously. The transmitters shattered.
What the hell was that?
Warning: Wild Dog Protocol initiated. 2 minutes to detonation. Just as the predecessors had warned, once the satellite system was disabled, the canyon's self-destruct sequence kicked in automatically. A tactical nuke erupted from the depths of the abyss. All attempts by the woman and her team to escape were futile. A blinding pillar of light swallowed everything in an instant. Anya barely cleared the blast zone, but Levi, nursing a leg injury, only just reached the boundary. The monstrous heatwave blasted him into a deep lake, leaving his fate unknown. Months later, in a quiet, peaceful town in France, Anya had settled into a new life. As she was busy serving a customer, a familiar silhouette appeared in the doorway. Levi had survived the impossible, keeping his promise to find her.
Hello, Justin.
Hello, Levi. You're late.
Sorry, I got injured at my old job.
If you're looking for work, my kitchen is hiring. Do you have any special skills? I'm a sniper. Never miss a shot. How does that sound? My last shot was from 3.900 meters. I had to beat my own record. I figured it was the only way I'd be worthy of coming back to you. The film concludes with the sweetest of endings for the 2 star-crossed snipers.